Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The Galactic Exchange was a cacophony of lights, sounds, and alien languages blending into a chaotic symphony. Set on the bustling trade moon of Bartru 5, the Exchange was the universe's largest trading hub, where beings of every shape and size came to barter goods, services, and on certain occasions living creatures. Among the many spectacles was the biannual Alien Auction, a grand event that drew crowds eager to buy rare and exotic life forms for labor, entertainment, or competition. Creatu was shoved forward onto the platform, his thin legs wobbling under the weight of the chain draped over his neck. The auctioneer, a towering insectoid with iridescent mandibles, tapped the microphone with a claw, commanding silence. Lot 43. A specimen from Aviarix, a once proud race of aerial hunters. The auctioneer's voice echoed, amplified by the surrounding holographic speakers. A spotlight illuminated Creatu, whose dull plumage reflected none of the vibrance expected of his kind. He blinked against the harsh light, trying to keep his balance. The crowd wasn't impressed. "Looks like it's been plucked already," jeered a bulky reptilian bidder, his laughter reverberating around the arena. "A predator?" "More like a feather duster," snickered another, a squid-like creature who wriggled its appendages in mock derision. The auctioneer pressed on, clearly desperate to salvage the sale. "This creature may not look like much, but it's quick. Agile. With the right training, it could become dash next lot," a voice interrupted from the back, followed by murmurs of agreement. Even the auctioneer's exaggerated sales pitch couldn't mask the truth. Creatu was a reject, unwanted and unworthy in the eyes of the crowd. Cree lowered his head, his bright amber eyes dimming as humiliation washed over him. He had once soared through the skies of Aviarix, a world of endless skies and towering cloud cities. But here, in the suffocating confines of the Exchange, he was nothing more than a curiosity, one that no one cared enough to own. "Last call," the auctioneer bellowed, desperation tinging his voice. "Starting bid at 50 credits. Anyone? 50 credits?" The silence was deafening. Even 50 credits, a sum barely enough to buy a meal in Bartru 5's cheapest dive, seemed too much for the avian creature on display. "I'll buy him," came a small but determined voice, cutting through the haze of apathy. The crowd turned toward the source, revealing a human girl standing near the back of the auction hall. Emily stood out in the alien crowd. Her short, unkempt brown hair framed a freckled facelet with conviction. Dressed in a patched jacket and worn boots, she didn't exude the wealth or power of the typical bidders. Instead, she clutched a worn satchel filled with savings she had painstakingly earned over the past year, working as a mechanic and scavenger in the shipyards. The auctioneer hesitated, eyeing her skeptically. 50 credits? Are you serious, girl?" "Serious enough to pay right now," Emily replied, stepping forward and slapping a small pouch of shimmering credits onto the counter. The coins clinked as she crossed her arms defiantly. "So? Is he mine or not?" The auctioneer glanced at the audience, hoping someone else might bid, but the crowd remained silent, more entertained by the girl's boldness than interested in the bird. With a resigned sigh, the auctioneer struck the gavel. "Sold. To the human girl in the back." Laughter rippled through the audience as Emily approached the platform. Ignoring the jeers and whispers, she extended a hand toward Cree. He flinched, but when she smiled, her expression warm and genuine, he hesitated, then cautiously stepped forward. The guards removed his chains, and for the first time in weeks, Cree felt a faint flicker of hope. "You're coming with me," Emily said, her tone both firm and kind. "I don't care what they say, you're worth more than they realize." Cree studied her carefully, unsure whether to trust her. She was small, frail by comparison to the towering creatures in the crowd, but her words carried a strength he hadn't heard in a long time. With a soft chirp of acknowledgement, he followed her down the platform. As they left the auction hall, the crowd's laughter faded, replaced by the faint hum of ships departing and arriving at the docks. Cree glanced back one last time, the heavy door closing behind them. The humiliation he had felt moments ago still lingered, but for the first time in his life, he wondered if the universe had a second chance waiting for him. Emily led him toward the dusty outskirts of the trade hub, her voice cheerful as she began explaining her plans. She wanted a partner, someone to share her adventures with. And Cree, she saw something no one else had. "We'll get you fixed up, don't worry," Emily said, looking up at the dull-feathered creature walking beside her. "By the time I'm done with you, they won't even recognize you." Cree didn't respond, but for the first time since his capture, his feathers rustled with a hint of life. Somewhere deep within, a faint ember of hope flickered. Emily's home was a humble but cozy place nestled on the outskirts of the Bartrue 5 colony. It was little more than a converted cargo container, surrounded by piles of scrap and spare parts she had collected over the years. Inside, the space was surprisingly warm and welcoming, adorned with string lights, soft blankets, and a cluttered workbench piled with tools and gadgets. As the door slid shut behind them, Creatu glanced around, his amber eyes taking in his new surroundings. It was a stark contrast to the sterile cages and dimly lit corridors of the auction house. Here, there was life, albeit chaotic and messy, but life nonetheless. "You can make yourself comfortable," Emily said, tossing her jacket onto a hook. "I mean, I know it's not exactly a royal palace, but it's home." Cree perched hesitantly on the edge of a reinforced table, his talons clinking softly against the metal. His feathers, once dull and ragged, were still drooping, and his movements were cautious, as if expecting a trap. Emily noticed and crouched down to meet his gaze. "Look, I get it," she said gently. "You've probably been through a lot. But you're safe here, okay? I'm not gonna hurt you." Cree studied her, his head tilting slightly in the way of his kind. There was no mockery in her voice, no derision in her eyes, just a strange, stubborn kindness. He gave a low, uncertain chirp, and Emily grinned. "That's the spirit," she said. "Let's start with a name. I know they called you Creatu at the auction, but how about I just call you Cree? Short and simple." Cree chirped again, this time with more confidence. He could live with that. The training begins. The first few weeks were a slow process of rebuilding trust and strength. Emily quickly discovered that Cree was more than just intelligent, he was astonishingly quick when he wanted to be. Even in his weakened state, he had a natural grace and precision in his movements, a testament to his avian heritage. Emily repurposed the scrap piles around her home into makeshift obstacle courses. She set up hoops to fly through, tunnels to navigate, and platforms to perch on at various heights. At first, Cree struggled, his wings trembling with each leap and his landings clumsy. But Emily was patient, encouraging him with gentle words and the occasional treat. "You're not just some reject," she told him one day as he completed his first successful loop through the hoops. "You've got talent, Cree. We just have to bring it out." Cree preened his feathers, a spark of pride glimmering in his eyes. Discovering potential as Cree's strength grew, so did his confidence. Emily noticed that his feathers, once dull and patchy, began to regain their vibrant hue. Shades of emerald, sapphire, and gold shimmered under the light. It was as though his body was responding to the care and purpose she gave him. Emily started to experiment with new challenges. She added moving targets to the obstacle course, programmed to zip and weave unpredictably. Cree took to them with surprising ease, his quick reflexes and sharp vision allowing him to outmaneuver even the trickiest patterns. By the end of the month, he was soaring through the course with a speed and precision that left Emily speechless. "You're incredible," she exclaimed one evening as Cree landed on her shoulder, his chest puffed out proudly. "Do you know what we could do with skills like yours? There are races, Cree, big ones. Dangerous ones. But with your speed and my tech, we could win." Cree tilted his head, chirping curiously. Emily could see the question in his eyes. "Why? Why do this?" "For both of us," she explained. You deserve more than to be forgotten in some cage, and I dashed. She paused, looking out the window at the distant glow of the spaceport. I want to prove we can do something amazing. Together. Challenges along the way. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Kree's injuries from his time in captivity occasionally flared up, leaving him grounded for days at a time. During these moments, his mood soured, and Emily had to work hard to lift his spirits. One night, as Kree rested on his perch, Emily sat beside him, holding a small glowing pendant. You remind me of my brother, she said softly. He was a fighter, too. He used to tell me that the universe isn't fair, but it's ours to shape if we're brave enough to try. Kree looked at her, sensing the weight behind her words. He chirped softly, brushing his wing against her hand. It wasn't much, but it was enough to let her know he understood. A new bond. Over time, the bond between Emily and Kree deepened. They became partners, each pushing the other to grow stronger and braver. Emily used her mechanical skills to design a lightweight flight harness for Kree, equipped with boosters and stabilizers to enhance his aerial capabilities. Kree, in turn, taught Emily to see the world from above, showing her the beauty of soaring through the skies. By the end of the second month, they were a team in every sense of the word. Kree no longer resembled the frail creature from the auction. His feathers gleamed with health, and his eyes burned with determination. Emily had transformed, too, her once aimless life now filled with purpose. One evening, as they practiced under the glow of the colony's twin moons, a sleek hovercraft approached. A tall, gray-skinned humanoid emerged, holding a data pad. Emily, the figure said, their voice neutral but curious. I hear you've got an impressive flyer. How would you like to enter the Galactic Aerial Championships? Emily and Kree exchanged a glance. The idea was terrifying, yet thrilling. Emily grinned. We're in. The Galactic Aerial Championships were the pinnacle of aerial racing, held on the desert planet Vora Prime. The planet's atmosphere was famous for its unstable winds and swirling sandstorms, making it a dangerous yet exhilarating venue. Competitors came from every corner of the galaxy, each vying for glory, riches, and the title of champion. Emily and Kree arrived at the sprawling race complex a week before the event, allowing time for registration and training. The towering domes and metallic pylons of the complex gleamed under the twin suns of Vora Prime, a sharp contrast to the rugged terrain beyond. It was a hive of activity, with competitors preparing their craft and creatures for the grueling course. Kree hopped out of their ship, his vibrant feathers catching the sunlight. He stretched his wings, drawing attention from nearby racers. Emily followed, carrying a backpack filled with tools and supplies. First time in the big leagues, a deep voice boomed. They turned to see a hulking creature, a mix of reptilian and insectoid features, grinning down at them. He gestured to Kree with a sharp claw. That your flyer? Looks more like breakfast. Emily bristled, but Kree didn't flinch. He stared at the creature, his sharp eyes unyielding. He's more than he looks, Emily replied coolly. You'll see. The reptilian laughed and moved on, leaving Emily and Kree to register and settle into their assigned hangar. Preparing for the race inside the hangar, Emily set to work fine-tuning Kree's equipment. The lightweight flight harness she had built was designed to enhance his speed and maneuverability, with miniaturized thrusters to provide bursts of power in tight situations. Kree watched as Emily adjusted the harness, chirping softly in encouragement. Don't worry, Emily said, tightening his strap. We've got this. You're faster than any of them, they just don't know it yet. Over the next few days, Emily and Kree trained relentlessly on the practice course. The challenges were unlike anything they had faced before: narrow tunnels carved through ancient rock formations, unpredictable wind currents that could send even the strongest flyers spiraling out of control, and automated drones firing low-powered laser blasts to simulate the chaos of a real race. At first, Kree struggled. The harsh winds of Vora Prime buffeted his wings, and the rocky terrain made navigation difficult. Emily cheered him on from the sidelines, her voice cutting through the roar of the winds. Stay focused, Cree. Use the wind, don't fight it. Gradually, Cree adapted. His natural agility allowed him to weave through the obstacles with increasing precision. By the third day, he was soaring through the course with an elegance that drew the attention of other racers. Whispers of the human and her bird began to circulate, and while some dismissed them as underdogs, others began to see them as serious contenders. Rivalries and sabotage, not everyone was impressed by Cree's growing reputation. Among the competitors was Zorvik, a renowned racer who piloted a massive, genetically engineered wyvern. Zorvik was a 6-time champion, and he viewed newcomers as threats to be crushed. On the eve of the race, Emily returned to the hangar to find Cree's harness tampered with. Wires were slashed, and the thruster modules were damaged beyond repair. She crouched beside the ruined equipment, her hands trembling with anger. Zorvik, she muttered under her breath. There was no proof, but she had seen his crew lingering near their hangar earlier. Cree squawked in frustration, flaring his wings. Emily placed a hand on his side, her jaw set with determination. We're not giving up, she said. We'll fix this. We always do. She worked through the night, repurposing parts from the scrap she had packed. Cree stayed by her side, his presence a silent reminder of why she couldn't quit. By dawn, the harness was functional again, albeit with some improvised modifications. The race. The starting line of the Galactic Aerial Championships was a spectacle of noise and energy. Racers and their creatures lined up in designated lanes, the air buzzing with tension. Cree stood proudly beside Emily, his feathers gleaming like polished gemstones. Across the way, Zorvik sneered at them from atop his wyvern, a predator's grin stretching across his face. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Racers, prepare for launch. The course is treacherous, the competition fierce. Only the strongest will prevail. As the countdown began, Emily placed a hand on Cree's harness, looking him in the eye. This is it, Cree. Fly like I know you can. The starting horn blared, and the race erupted into chaos. Cree shot into the air, his wings slicing through the turbulence with precision. The first section of the course led them through a maze of narrow rock spires. Competitors jostled for position, and Cree narrowly avoided a collision with a large, winged beast. Emily's voice crackled through the communicator in his harness. Stay sharp, Cree. Dive low, there's a clear path under the spires. Cree obeyed, pulling off a daring maneuver that placed them ahead of the pack. Behind them, Zorvik's wyvern roared, its massive wings battering the air as it closed the distance. The next segment was a gauntlet of wind tunnels. Cree's smaller size and agility gave him an edge, allowing him to slip through the currents while larger competitors struggled. Zorvik, however, was relentless. His wyvern's brute strength enabled it to punch through the wind, and soon he was neck and neck with Cree. You'll never last, Feather Duster. Zorvik snarled over the comms. Emily's voice rang out. Ignore him, Cree. Focus. As they entered the final stretch, the course plunged into the infamous Shard Canyon, a twisting labyrinth filled with shimmering energy fields. The slightest misstep could mean instant disqualification or worse. Cree soared through the canyon, his movements precise and controlled. Zorvik, in his desperation to catch up, pushed his wyvern too hard. The massive creature clipped an energy field, sending sparks flying and forcing it to slow down. With one final burst from his thrusters, Cree shot out of the canyon and crossed the finish line in a blaze of color. The crowd erupted in cheers as Emily's voice broke through the comms. You did it, Cree. We won. Cree landed gracefully, his chest heaving with exertion. Emily ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck as tears streamed down her face. They had done it. Against all odds, they had proven themselves. Cree stood tall as the announcer declared them the winners, the once-rejected bird now a champion. In that moment, under the roaring applause of thousands, Cree and Emily knew they had not just won a race, they had defied expectations, shown the universe their strength, and forged an unbreakable bond. The victory at the Galactic Aerial Championships transformed Emily and Cree's lives overnight. The crowd's deafening cheers still echoed in Emily's ears as she stood on the winner's podium, Cree perched beside her, his feathers shimmering in the brilliant light of the desert planet's twin suns. Their names flashed across the massive holoscreens surrounding the arena, accompanied by a vibrant replay of Cree's daring maneuvers through the Shard Canyon. For Cree, it was more than just a victory, it was vindication. The once scorned bird, mocked and discarded, now stood as a champion. The other racers, even Zorvik, had no choice but to acknowledge his prowess. Emily couldn't suppress her grin as a reporter floated toward her, hovering on an anti-grav platform with a camera drone buzzing nearby. Emily. Cree. This is an extraordinary win. How does it feel to go from underdogs to champions? The reporter asked, holding out a microphone. Emily placed a hand on Cree's side, her grin widening as she looked at her partner. It feels like we proved that no matter where you start, it's about where you finish. Cree's always been a champion, I just helped the galaxy see it. Cree chirped proudly, puffing out his chest as the crowd cheered again. The aftermath of victory, the days following the championship, were a whirlwind of attention. Emily and Cree were invited to galas, interviewed by interstellar media, and showered with sponsorship offers. Companies wanted Cree to wear their logos, racers begged for training tips, and fans clamored for autographs. For the first time, Emily had more credits than she knew what to do with. But fame had its challenges. As they traveled between events, Emily noticed that Cree was growing restless. Despite their success, he seemed out of place among the glitzy parties and endless streams of reporters. His feathers, once vibrant and full of life during their training and racing, began to dull slightly under the weight of the spotlight. One evening, as they rested aboard their ship, Emily sat beside Cree, stroking his feathers gently. I miss the quiet, too, she admitted. All this attention, it's a lot. Cree turned his head, chirping softly. Emily could see it in his eyes. He wanted to fly again, not for trophies or glory, but for the pure joy of it. She smiled, feeling a sense of relief. Then let's get back to what we love. A new journey. Emily declined most of the sponsorship offers, keeping only enough to maintain their ship and fund their next adventure. With the rest of the prize money, she upgraded their equipment and purchased star charts to unexplored regions of the galaxy. We'll chart our own path, Emily told Cree as they plotted a course toward the uncharted Aurelian Nebula. No races, no reporters, just us, doing what we do best. Their journey took them to the edges of known space, where they encountered breathtaking sights, bioluminescent creatures drifting through the void, ancient ruins on forgotten moons, and nebulae that painted the stars with vivid hues. Along the way, they helped outposts in need, delivered supplies to isolated colonies, and occasionally tested Kree's skills in small local races. Word of their exploits began to spread, not through galactic news channels, but through the stories of those they helped. Emily and Cree became legends, not just as racers, but as adventurers who brought hope and wonder wherever they went. A legacy of hope. Years later, Emily and Cree returned to the Galactic Exchange, the very place where their journey had begun. The auction house was still there, its towering facade as imposing as ever. But this time, they didn't come as buyers or spectators, they came as changemakers. With their accumulated wealth, Emily purchased the entire auction house and turned it into a sanctuary for rejected and mistreated creatures. Cree became a symbol of the sanctuary, his story inspiring others to see the potential in every life. Together, they built a training program to help others like Cree discover their strengths and pursue their dreams. The sanctuary thrived, and Emily and Cree continued to explore the galaxy, their bond stronger than ever. Whenever they returned, they were greeted by cheers and chirps from creatures who had been given a second chance. Full circle. One evening, as Emily and Cree stood on the sanctuary's observation deck, they watched the sunset over Bartrue 5. The sky was painted with hues of gold and crimson, reminding Emily of Cree's vibrant feathers. "You know," Emily said, leaning on the railing, "if someone had told me a few years ago that I'd meet a scrawny bird at an auction and we'd end up here, I'd have laughed in their face." Cree let out a low, melodic chirp that sounded almost like a chuckle. Emily turned to him, her smile soft but full of pride. "You're more than a champion, Cree. You're a legend. And we're just getting started." Cree spread his wings, the wind catching the tips of his feathers as they shimmered in the fading light. Together, they gazed out at the horizon, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store for them next. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, a new adventure waited for the girl and her bird who dared to defy the odds.